So each month I talk about the pens and pencils I've been writing with. In this series, I'd like to talk about the paper that I've been writing on. Like that one, this is not reviews, it's not recommendations, it's just a paper that's been on my desk lately. Start off with this. This is a Clyde Notes ring memo, and it's a nice little portable size. I don't tend to use ring memos, which they kind of press up against your hand if you're lefty, but I like this one. It uses a craft style paper, which is a brown, somewhat coarse paper, and this tiny, tiny grid. It's like a 2mm grid. It's really not good for fountain pens because the grid makes up a disproportionately high percentage of the paper, but it's just a nice, fun little notebook I've been using. And this is something I'd use just for kind of jotting down day-to-day notes, kind of like if you're on the phone or on a conference call, or you're making up a list. Also, if you want to tear it out, a ring memo is really a great way for that. So this is a Clyde Notes craft paper notebook, tiny little size, A6. So there you go. I like this one a lot. If I'm on the go and I need some paper with me, I really like this Sylvine memo book. It's not super well made, has a kind of cheapo cover, but this Sylvine paper is quite nice. I like their project book, their memo book. Basically everything this company makes is British paper, is some of my favorite stuff. I really just enjoy the texture of this paper. So this is the Sylvine, and it's called the memo book. I really like their project book, but I've worn mine out, so I had to resort to my memo book. The memo is the little one, the project is the big one. It's sort of a heavyweight paper, has a bit of coarseness to it, and I've only used it in, I think, lined and grid, so they don't have too many fancy options. It's pretty plain if you see it, and again, the cover is not nice. It's sort of falling apart on me because some of these staples are coming out, but I really like their paper overall. I'd say my main absolute workhorse day-to-day or month-to-month, whatever, is this Midori. So MD paper Midori. This is their cotton paper, and they have these little desk pads that are bound or kind of like glued on two edges, so they hold together like a desk pad. No spiraling, so good for lefties. And this is the #1 paper I use every month. This is the MD Midori cotton. This is in the cream color, which is generally how you see it. They sell a larger desk pad than this that I really like, but it's a little pricey, and it's actually more than I need. So this smaller size, whatever it is, A5 maybe, actually ends up being really nice for just general note-taking. Has this cool little corner that serves no real purpose, but I always know it's this one because it has the cropped corner, which is very cool, or the clipped corner, whatever that is. This is a good fountain pen paper. It has some texture to it, but it's just but it's smooth, but it has enough texture that I feel like I'm writing on something like a refined type of paper. I really do like this Midori cotton paper, and I can't recommend it highly enough. I bought some of that Midori paper in a 3-pack. So this is a 3-pack of the Notebook Light, which just means they're soft cover notebook, and it's A5 lined. That's just a solid day-to-day journal. I have a lot of different of these and a lot of different papers or notebooks, whatever you want to call it, because sometimes I like to separate ideas. So I'll write on the cover here, oh, this is for project A, this one's for project B. Instead of having have a ring binder or mixed ideas or something like that, I'll buy a bunch of these project sized notebooks, which for me, project size is like whatever this is, A5, A6, B7, whatever it is, A5, I guess. And I'll just separate them out. And this is 60 sheets, something like that. And it'll be a nice paper, nicely made, so it'll last, even though it has a pretty inexpensive kind of cardboard type cover. And that'll last throughout the week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever duration of that idea or project I'm working on, I really like to separate those out. And this Midori cotton paper is, again, my favorite. And I really like to have these light notebooks, so highly recommended. I've been experimenting with some paper, and one of the ones I will be experimenting with, so that'll probably be later in the month, was this Hobonichi, whatever, Teco. This is just a lightweight set of notebooks. I think it's 2 notebooks from them, and I haven't even opened this one up yet, so it'll be, I guess, what I will be writing with pretty soon, maybe this week, maybe next week, who knows. But I'm looking forward to testing this one out. It's kind of a plasticized cover and nice. I believe this is Tomoe River paper is what they use in the Teco notebooks. That very thin, lightweight, smooth paper in a, a good size grid. So this will be a nice little sort of project book for day-to-day type things. Then I've been using this. This is a little bit more of a special one. This is an Itoya Romeo, which is Itoya is the pen brand, kind of a old school Japanese pen brand. Make a bunch of cool pens, old and new. Romeo is, I believe, their line of fountain pen friendly paper. You even see a fountain pen or a fountain pen ink bottle there. And so this is a smooth paper. We're talking like Rhodia level smoothness, so extreme smoothness, heavyweight with a good size grid. This is a kind of a little bit high end for me. Probably this is a $20 or $25 notebook, spiral bound, so also not something I tend to use, and really smooth. So this is the Itoya Romeo. That smoothness means it's more prone to smearing than is really good for a lefty. But I just wanted to play with this. I was reading, I forget where, but someone recommended how great the Romeo notebooks are, and it was such an endorsement that I immediately went out and tried to track one down. And they're not that easy to find. It's not a super popular option in the US. I've been fairly happy with it, but it doesn't really scratch an itch for me, because if I want maximum smoothness, I'll get the Nemosin, the Merriman Nemosin, or Rhodia or Clairefontaine or something like that does it for me. So I didn't need another option in that world, but it's a super nice notebook, really well made, has this nice copper spiraling. This is a nice textured cardboard or board, thick, and has almost a leather style to it. It's sort of, they would call it pebbled, I think. But yeah, and it's held up really well. I haven't used it that much because the paper is just a little bit too smooth for me. So my notes tend to get more messy than they would otherwise be, and they tend to smear, but I do like it a lot. I'd like to see some sort of binding here, or some sort of like elastic thing to hold it closed, but it's a nice notebook, very classy looking. Lastly, I've been using these Cornell Method grid notebooks in B5. I found these on Amazon Japan. I was making an order and they were pretty cheap, and I wanted to experiment with the Cornell method of note-taking. So I bought these. It was like 3 for $8 or 3 for $6 or something like that. It's actually a really nice paper. And this is a lot like a Kikuya student, or their campus, Kikuya campus paper. So it means it's a lightweight notebook, affordable. This is it's an A5 size, made by a company called Gakken, Gakken, which I hadn't been familiar with or wasn't familiar with before. It's small, only 32 sheets. So I just use this for kind of jotting down notes or scribbling ideas, whatever. It's a grid here. And then with the Cornell style, you kind of, you write some notes over here. And then at the bottom, you write, questions or summary, whatever. Depends on how you want to use it. But that 3 panel is that Cornell style. There's some little extra stuff like the date, but it's a smooth paper, nice and absorbent. So it will dry relatively quickly. Not perfect. You saw some smearing there, but it'll be okay for like a gel pen or a roller ball. Not great for fountain pens, but it has a nice bit of texture to it. You could probably hear me writing. So more texture than a higher end paper. And this is sort of like a very typical notebook for me. I like soft cover stuff, and I like pretty cheap stuff. I tend to go with a slightly smaller size, like a B5 or A5, just because they're a little bit cheaper and easier to throw in a bag. So these are fine. I wouldn't recommend them unless you want like a combination of Japanese Japanese paper with a Cornell method layout, which I think is pretty niche. I think it's actually made in, it's made in China. It's not made in Japan. It might be a Japanese company, but yeah, I bought it from Amazon Japan, if that makes any difference. So interesting, but not something I'd recommend, but a fun thing to play with for a month or so. So I think that summarizes what I've been writing on lately. If you want the real takeaways from this, I would say check out Sylvine. They make great stuff. And then the Midori Notebook Light, a great option. Or if you want something a little bit more heavyweight and durable, check out their Midori cotton desk pads. So that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching.